All right, all right, all right, all right. I think we're live on all platforms. Hanging out today, friend of mine, Kosha Dills, uh, rapper extraordinaire, influencer, all that kind of stuff. We're gonna be talking about his story a little bit as a Jewish rapper. We're going to be talking about some of these statements by Nick Cannon and just unpacking all this stuff. So if you're here with us, don't go anywhere. We're going to drop the intro one time. I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, that's right. I don't need nothing else. That's right. Hey, what's going on? It's Ruslan with King's Dream ENT. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live God's dream for your life. We cover all kinds of different topics from music, marketing, Fan Love Friday, live streams, all kinds of stuff. And man, it's been a wild time in terms of what's going on in culture, in society. And I figured I want to have this dialogue in a productive, healthy way. I want to share all the different perspectives, and I want people to just get good information, good, solid information about these different, often polarizing topics. And so I got a friend of mine today I'm going to introduce here in a second. But if you guys didn't know, earlier this week, we've covered this on the channel before. A personality, rapper, artist, entrepreneur, who I'm a fan of. He's from San Diego. His name's Nick Cannon. Made some wild statements that got him into some hot water. He since subsequently apologized. And I just wanted to have this conversation. So real quick, let me read the statements to you guys. This is what was said. I find myself wanting to debate this idea, and it gets real wishy-washy and unclear for me when we give so much power to theys and theys, then turn into Illuminati, Zionists, Rothschilds. Then he went on to say, you can't be anti-Semitic when we are the Semitic people. That's our birthright. So if that's our true birthright, there's no hate involved. Pretty controversial statement. Some will call anti-Semitic. I wanted to get somebody that, you know, is Jewish to share his perspective on some of these things, also tell his story. This brother has done a TED Talk. He's toured nationally. He's collaborated with artists like Modest Yahoo. Ladies and gentlemen, no further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Kosha Dills. What's up, man? How you doing?
It's cracking, man. I love it. I can't believe I'm on the Ruslan show.
Believe it, you're here. Me and you met a while ago, I believe, through the homie Mers. I think we were like backstage in a green room or something.
We did a show at Orange County, like during maybe 2014 when he was doing the Mers for Christmas shows.
Yes. It was backstage, and he spoke highly of you, and anybody who Mers speaks highly of, I tend to be fond of, and so. I've watched your ascent. I've watched you grind super hard. You've talked about on your TED Talk about how freestyling and hip hop saved your life, and you have a really cool story, man. So I want you to share a bit about that real quick. If you're watching this live, give this video a thumbs up. That helps us a ton in the algorithm. And let me know where you are watching from, because I think that helps me gauge like the audience and all that kind of stuff. So let me know. So Kosha Dills, you want to just kind of, for the people who don't know who you are, just kind of fill them in. You've really well accomplished, well traveled, educated dude. Just kind of give an update on who you are in case people don't know, never heard of you.
Probably released my first record 2005. Grew up from New Jersey hip hop and performing in New York City. In rap battles. 2009, I won the Summer Jam Battle. 2008, did a project with C. Ray's Walls, bridging Black and Jewish culture together. We raised money for Uncle Rush's organization with Rabbi Mark Schneier. I was always on the forefront of just like collaborating with like Black Jewish stuff. I was in the BT Cypher in 2012, RZA. Had a Super Bowl commercial that really cemented my music. As far as like my musical career, like, you know, once I got into licensing and had a really big hit, and I've been doing it all independent. Never had a record deal. I was booking tours off MySpace, just grinding. Did paid dues with Mers, Macklemore, Kendrick, Mac Miller. I mean, played that circuit with everyone. A lot of people got really big. Some just stayed here. We're just, you know, and I'm still doing it. I've been blessed to do music full time. and by embracing who I am, really, which is I love rap, I love representing who I am, my identity, being a Jew, Israeli family, and being from Jersey, and currently in LA for the past 9 years, and now I'm moving to New York. In New York, also I'll be doing New York and Israel as my like residence.
So you're going to, man, you're leaving Southern California for New York.
Like literally
That's
today,
very
yeah, like
interesting.
literally today, and it's yeah, I've always dreamed of living in New York. I've kind of my bucket list stuff. So last year I was like, I'm leaving LA. I'm just going to move in Israel. And when I was living in Jaffa, which is a port city where Jonah and the whale, a story of Jonah whale originates.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you remember, there's a street called Ruslan Street, and I sent it to you. And I'm like, yo, yeah, it was Ruslan Street. So I thought of you. It's right there out of water, and it's really cool.
I want to go
Amazing.
to Israel, man. I got to make that like a to do 2021. I got to get out there, bro. All my buddies that go come back, faith reinvigorated, life changed. So I'm really looking forward to taking that trip.
It's
Bro,
cool.
how did the TED Talk happen? Because that was like amazing. Like I remember like scrolling through YouTube and like randomly seeing you on my feed. And I'm like, yo, this fool made it. Like there's one thing of being like, yeah, I'm an independent rapper and I'm making it, but when you're on a TED Talk, I was just like, man, this is so inspiring. So how did that come about?
The TED Talk. So okay, this will be good information just um, about Poland. So my family is Polish Jews, and I went with my mother and my great aunt to go to visit the concentration camps, and my family's from there, so they get like a lot of salt treatments there. So we went, and Modest Yahoo was playing there in Warsaw at this singer festival. It's like there's a lot of Jewish festivals in
Mm-hmm.
Poland, but there's no
Mm-hmm.
Jews. So people dress. It's really odd. You could look it up online. It was a massive show. Went there, met people in Warsaw in the Jewish community, then got directed to Krakow. After performing with Modest Yahoo there, I got invited back by this guy to perform. His name is Jonathan Ornstein. JCC Krakow is the only JCC that's not protected with like armed guards. If you go to JCC, there's
Mm-hmm.
always security and stuff, especially in Europe. He said there's a guy locally that does TED Talks. So I did this bike ride from Auschwitz to Krakow. It's about a 65-kilometer ride.
Mm-hmm.
You ride with Holocaust survivors, and then
Mm.
he connected me. He did a TED Talk. He's like about like reviving Jewish life in Poland, where all the Jews are
Mm-hmm.
killed. And then he connected me with him, and the guy's like, "Oh, we would love like a rapper or like some interesting." And it was a TED Talk in Krakow, in Kazimierz, which is like the Jewish quarter. So it's really old Jewish areas, and it was all Polish crowd, like 200 people. And yeah, I was like, "How about this thing? Freestyle rap changed my life," and
Mm.
just sort of just living on that. Yo, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Show up and
Yeah.
do the show. Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, of course. And I'm not never like worried about the money or things of that nature.
Yeah.
And that's sort of that mentality of what my TED Talk was based around, my story
Yeah.
and the idea of freestyle rap, man.
That's so
Life.
cool. Now, yeah, the freestyle rap, the street performer thing, bro. You crushed that. Like I've seen videos of that, and I was just like, man, this is really cool. You know what I mean? Uh, okay, so how I got the idea? We've known each other for a while, but I got the idea, man. You had a really cool article on Hip Hop DX. Shout out to Hip Hop DX. I got to give credit where credit is due. You had a very dope article responding to some of these statements that Nick made, and subsequently, to be fair, Nick Cannon has since apologized to the Jewish community. I think he's had some probably really fruitful conversations with Jewish rabbis and just scholars about some of this stuff. But let's just broad strokes. What are your overall impressions of this? And we can kind of dig deeper into like where I think some of this is coming from, but just broad strokes, like what's your impressions of this thing?
Well, I think it's first good to note, like, one, I just want to say Black Lives Matter, right? Because first
Amen.
off the bat, there's a huge divide right off the bat when you're reading something that's super reactionary. It's a reactionary article, right? It's like
Hmm.
Jewish rapper responds to Nick Cannon. So right now they're pitting this light-skinned guy versus this black guy for clicks on the internet, right? Which is, that's going to be the surface thing. And I've been involved with hip hop culture since the late '90s when I started rapping, and everyone I've worked with is black. So I want to say Black Lives Matter because people would start to pick you apart. Now, when you just go to see what's now, luckily we live in America and the world where it's freedom to practice whatever religion you want, and to be respectful of other people's religion. What isn't based and essentially like for Black Hebrew Israelite or Nation of Islam, it's totally fine to believe whatever you want. Like, and I really, honestly, truly believe that. But what becomes anti-Semitic is when all of a sudden this conversation started drifting into like the Zionist-controlled bank entities of things, which make people all of a sudden think that I control all the money, and that I all of a sudden I control all the media. I own Hip Hop DX. I made them write the article. You know, all these things. Manipulating everybody. Now, you know, and they have the money. They own Hollywood. They have too much influence.
Yes.
So Nick Cannon, who's like, you know, on Nickelodeon, you know what I'm saying, starts saying this. It's just like everyone's like, oh my God, like not only are we past the point of no return, like this is Nick Cannon. He's like the nicest guy ever. Like, how does he think? And what it unleashed is now just to go off to the sincerity of Nick's apology. Nick is apologetic, you know, and I would also be apologetic if I lost everything. Like when I get arrested by the police, like during the protests, like a guy was about to beat me with a nightstick, and I said, please don't hit me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm apologetic, right? Because I'm about to get hit. When I got in trouble, but my mom catches me stealing, I'm apologetic. When Nick loses, you know, millions and millions of dollars because he said really offensive statements to the Jewish community, he's apologetic. What he does from here on out is on him, but what it does unleash is what I call the comment section. And the comment section is a breeding ground for things that can't be policed. So Nick can't police his own comment section. I don't think he's on Instagram all day. When you have a comment section, start going back and forth, and you know, I started screenshotting all the messages I got just from having that article. And I can tell you, I'm like, it doesn't baffle me that there's trolls and stuff like that, but what does baffle me is that people are totally fine with like having the regular name on the internet and totally believing like, you know, Hitler, the Jews did the Holocaust. You know, it just drifts into a whole other thing that wasn't what it was ultimately about. And
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so,
And let's just define a couple terms. So like Semitic, right? And I'll just pull it up. It says relating to or denoting a family of languages that includes Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, and a certain ancient languages such as, I can't pronounce these words, constituting the main subgroup of the Afro-Asiatic family, relating to the people who speak Semitic languages, especially Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic, right? So a Semitic people are a people who come from that part of the country, and we would identify as Israel, Israeli people. These are the people that we would view of the Old Testament, Moses, the people of Abraham, so on and so forth. So Semitic, right? That is the roots. What parts of this do you think are questionable from a historical standpoint? Because the theory kind of goes that there's this group of what we would view as modern day Jews, but somewhere in history they like swapped places almost with Africans, right? Is that kind of the theory?
There is, well, just people don't know where Jews are from, right? Jews are from Judea, and then Jews are from all these portions. So, you know, like in a lot of the comment sections would be like, well, wasn't Moses black? Or, you know, and ultimately, like, these are all up for you to determine, you know, what the ultimate thing of why I want to stick to like why Nick was, what he did was anti-Semitic, is that the religion and to believe who was, you know, I think people categorize, you know, Jews as like a dominant force, but Jews are 0.2% of the world population. The majority of them were killed. The Jews that were in Europe didn't originate in Europe. They came from Judea first, and they were, you know what I'm saying, through the times of fighting in Israel, in the time of like that era, where people are conquering and kicking them out and expelling, and there's people coming from all over the world. So now if you go into Israel, most people aren't light-skinned like me. Most people are dark. I mean, there's a majority. There's Mizrahi Jews, North African, Jemena, Jewish indigenous people of the Middle East and Northern Africa. So you have Moroccans, Libyans, Egyptians. These are all Jews that have been expelled from these countries. So for me, it's not surprising that like people don't know that, because when people think Jewish person, they think New York. You know what I'm saying? Like a Jewish or whatever. Like, and I get that too. You're like, that's my homie at the deli, or like, that Jewish guy, like he works at the label. Like here, you know, but what unfortunately, what it came into is the real problem of what Nick is like kind of, I don't know what's the exact word, it was like perpetrating with like his style of talking with Professor Griff,
Mhm.
who, mind you, Professor Griff was kicked out by Chuck D for being anti-Semitic. So it's like,
Yes.
I don't know if you're going to question Chuck D, of like father of hip hop, but that's like pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, how's Nick here anyway? Um, I'm losing my train of thought, but like ultimately, the idea of people, what it really ignited is that people don't know anything about the history of Jewish people. So therefore, the lack of education of our history
Mhm.
make people just make continuous like
Yeah.
assumptions.
Yeah,
You know?
and just so we're clear, you just said that Jewish people are all over the world. They're scattered all over the world. You
There's
named
Indian Jews.
multiple African nations.
Yeah, of course. Indian Jews. There's Jews in Uganda. Like I'm literally there's a whole group in Israel of like Indian Jews that have come from India to live in Israel.
Hmm.
There's Jews from Asia. There's Japanese Jews. You know, Canadians. There's Spanish Jews. There's a lot of Sephardic Jews that moved to Mexico and to the islands. There's Caribbean Jews. I just did an event called Solvay, which was Black Jewish artists working together. I had a Holocaust survivor. I had Ethiopian Israeli refugees. And there's a whole movement of Ethiopian refugees. There's a movie called The Red Sea Diving Resort. I totally would love for you guys to watch it. It's a story about the Ethiopian Jewish refugees that came to Israel. So we had all of them speaking back, and we had Akil from Jurassic 5, who's Muslim. So like my idea was, you know, as Nick is a person of power
Yeah.
who has millions of followers, like millions and millions and millions of followers. Now, just so you know, he's an entertaining guy. Wild and out. We all want to be in it. Like Nick is awesome. So he could have used that as a time to bring everyone together.
Yeah.
By going forward, and now he has to retract on his statements and stick up. He's already given people what they want, and then the comment section is just breeding in hatred. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And even Nick already apologized, and other people haven't, and that's really like what it sort of does to me. It's like, damn, dude, like he's lit the fire, and now he can't control it. You know?
Yeah, that's good. And therein lies the anti-Semitic and anti-white comments, right? When you're just using broad generalities to say, well, all white people are subhuman,
Right.
and
Like
right,
I pass for white when I get pulled
right,
over by a police officer.
as do I, right?
But if you see my name, if you could pronounce my name, I'll let you call me white. You know what I'm saying? My name is Rami Matan Evanesh. People are like Rami Matan. It's a foreign name. You know what I mean? So I've always dealt with like, oh, this is a really interesting story for me because people see kosher dills and they don't really know the whole story behind how that thing happened. But like when I see the Nick thing, it was a bummer because
Yeah.
it's not been just Nick. It's been a string of events from other celebrities and other people sticking. And if you notice, like Diddy's like, "We got you, Nick." It's not black versus Jewish. You know what I'm saying? This is us marching with civil rights with Martin Luther King and Rabbi Abraham Heschel together because the KKK wants to kill us both. So it's really important for somebody that doesn't know is that like, yes, John Jacob from Des Moines, Iowa is a white dude and he's a nice guy, but Rami Matan, you know what I'm saying? Although I'm not white. That doesn't you mean you suffer from you privilege off being white, and yeah, when you're dealing with police for sure.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
of course, because that's the first thing. But it's really important to differentiate white and Jewish because Hitler was white and he killed 6 million Jews
Yep.
because he thought that was the right thing to do because they weren't white. So what Nick kind of introduces is this idea of that he's kind of perpetuating like a lot of the Farrakhan statements that he's anti-gay, he's calls Jews termites, and then other people agree with him, like David Duke from the KKK. So if that's like what if you like bring right before Nick, there was the football player Deshaun Jackson, reposting Hitler quotes, thinking that the problem isn't that they're not sincere with their apologies. The problem is that they thought it was a good idea to post it because he thought he was empowering this. So they meant to. Nick didn't probably mean he thought he was like in helping people, and that idea. If you think you're helping people and another group of people is like, no, Ruslan, no, like that is extremely offensive, and then you're like, no, bro, who are you to tell me how I'm offending you? Like, you shouldn't be offended. You're not so you're basically de-identifying me, and you're breaking me down and be like, bro, why are you even mad? You know what I'm saying? You don't have any suffering. So it's like, although my suffering is not the same as black people in America, it's a different kind of stuff, but it's very similar because we deal with the same things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you said something interesting that I didn't know, and I've since had this conversation. You said that when we're looking at the math of which minority group is experiencing the most amount of hate crimes in America, it's actually Jewish people.
Yeah, yeah. Because we kind of like get it. I mean, we got it obviously from white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? Like those attacks. But before coronavirus, if you could imagine life before coronavirus, December, this was there was a huge upswing in attacks on Jewish people. Now, visible Jewish people, people in like not Jewish person like me. Like I don't have the payas and the black hat. I'm not Orthodox from observant Jew. From is F-R-U-M, not F-R-O-M for anyone. It's a little gem for people. There were a bunch of attacks, including Jersey City and Muncie, and those attacks were by black Israelites. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a black Israelite, because I know a lot. There's black Israelites in Israel, in Dimona, which I could and give you some links to check out. And but there was a person that thought like this was the right thing to do, and that's sort of directly correlated with what Farrakhan's doing and the same sort of speech and world that this guy was, attacked Jews. And then there was a huge march, fighting against anti-Semitism, but it was only Jews, you know what I mean? So it consistently comes back to being like, it's the sentiment in the Jewish community is that you could get canceled for being this, but being anti-Semitic, you'll always get a pass. Like it's like you could rebound back from it, fam. Like it's all good. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's a bummer. And that's a bummer because of the influence of Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad and a lot of the things that they've propagated, which I do think that, and I said this before, like I think a lot of it comes from a place of hurt, like being hurt as black people. And so then there's this like, we're going to overcorrect and lash out. But then it does come off anti-Semitic. It does. Some of the statements they do sound very sympathetic to the views of a Hitler, right? And it's just like, fam, like we can't ignore that there are multiple people throughout history that have endured awful genocide-like stuff, right? And it's almost like we shouldn't have a competition of who's suffering is worse, right? And I don't know if you know this about me, Kosher, but I'm Armenian. My father's Armenian. He looks more Arabic than anything else, right?
This is the most forgotten genocide. It was just I think it was just recognized by America, if I'm not mistaken. But
it was recognized, and then the president wouldn't sign it. Like it was recognized by the House and the Senate. He wouldn't sign it because of the political relationship with Turkey. But it was the Turkey genocide against Armenians of 1915, and which inspired the genocide against the Jewish people, inspired Hitler to say, well, who remembers the Armenians, right? And this happened less than 100 years ago, and so people see my fair skin. Again, they don't know that my name is Ruslan KD, that I'm from Azerbaijan, Baku, right? That my first language is not English. And they see that and they say, oh, well, they'll place me under the subhuman people who come from the Caucasus Mountains and are closer to animals. And it's like, bro, my lineage literally had nothing to do with colonizing black people. My lineage had nothing to do with slavery, but I do, much like yourself, do experience a level of white privilege in that the way I'm viewed on a surface level when I'm pulled over before they know my history, before they see the way my name is spelled. So like me and you both acknowledge that, and then and to say that just the broad generalities, I think, is what bugs me the most, man. Is like the broad generalities that because you appear white, that therefore you are the oppressor, when it's like, fam, my great grandparents, probably like your grandparents, were trying not to be like the victims of a genocide. You know what I mean? Like we're and Jewish people, and as well as myself personally, I can't speak on behalf of all Armenians, but have been on the side of fighting for civil rights with black people in America. I went and marched at Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think that's the part that is that is just unfortunate is like, this is a time where the nation is awakening, and we could come together and we could say, hey, let's all fight for equal justice. Let's all fight for equality. But instead, we're saying, no, these people are less than, these people are the Illuminati or the Zion, right? And it's just like, oh, bro, no.
And the way they use the word Zionist is a new way to just say Jews, because it's unfortunate that the way like people have twisted that is, and it's catching it's a massive popularity. You know what I'm saying? Like my family's from Israel, hence therefore we're Zionists. Just like wanting to think there's a safe haven for Jews in Israel and their eternal homeland, which has been there. Now, if you take all religion out of it, etc., everything that Nick said was problematic, because it just goes back to thinking that Jews control the world and that we have too much influence. But like I said, I put in a tweet out, I don't own any banks. I could totally, and if you want to give me one, I'd gladly take one. The other running joke is that we're in the Illuminati, but I didn't receive any checks yet. Because did you? So I checked with anyone else. Did you get a check? Because are we running the world?
Yeah, I never got an invitation to the Illuminati.
Yeah, so it's like, but that doesn't, like, so my thing is, when you're at such a level of prestige and you've worked with Jewish people too, there's another thing in the Jewish community. If you don't see a lot of people calling out anti-Semitism, it's really popular to call out Black Lives Matter, because obviously Black Lives Matter. Right. This is a massive movement. It's happening right now. But you won't see the same person, including Jewish people that work in the industry, or maybe because they're honestly afraid of what other people will judge them for, because they devalidated, like, dude, you're like, you need to arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor, which we do need to arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. But that has nothing to do, like, I have to, if you told me go screw myself, like, we still have to arrest, and be like, I can't believe you did it, we still have to arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. Right. That is totally separate from the topic at hand, So like I said, it's like disappointing, but it doesn't mean that we can't still do both.
Yes, absolutely, and we should, and we need to.
It's like, it's not like I'm not shoveling 6 hours here with Black Lives Matter, and then I got to spend another 6 hours shoveling against anti-Semitism. Right. You could do it at the same time. This isn't physical work. This is just being like, yo, I'm posting this, and you know what I'm saying, and I'm just letting you know this is fucked up, and I think we should, I just want to say that. You know what I mean?
Yep. Can you just break down a bit of the history? You alluded to it in this article of how Jewish people even got into Hollywood or got into banking, because that's some misconceived stuff there as well.
Yeah. So Hollywood was built, but Hollywood wasn't some magical thing that appeared in the air to give Jews tons of money to create films to hire black people in and brown people and make money off them. And that is, I think, what was inferred of like the mentality. Jews run Hollywood. Jews run the music industry. Yes, Jerry Heller had his issues in NWA, right? Right? Everyone knows Jerry Heller, the first manager, what Ice Cube kind of alluded to. There are these Jewish people that are in there. But ultimately, Hollywood was given to the Jewish people because no one ever believed that people would watch anything on television. People thought Broadway was the WASP community, the non-Jewish, I guess Italians, that was the thing in New York. No one wants to do, Hollywood. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not going to be anything. That's for idiots. So you guys can have that. And essentially, that's very similar to money lending. And Jews are involved in money. This all comes back from times, and forgive me if I'm wrong, where Christian or Catholicism was like, no, we can't do money lending, so we'll let the Jews do that. Yep. You guys will handle that because that's for, that's not for us.
Yeah, because Christians tend, based on like some of the passages in Romans, Christians tend not to like the idea of lending money, and they didn't want to be in that business. And I think that's from a couple Bible verses. I'm not I personally don't like debt. I think Proverbs says debt is dumb, so I don't owe anybody anything, and I don't borrow money. And the only time I probably will ever borrow money is if I get like a 15-year mortgage to buy a home.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's, I get it. Yeah. No, that's totally.
I think, but you're totally right. Like it was a frowned upon business, just like you said Hollywood was. And then it was kind of like, oh, well, just whatever, you guys could have that. And then they, grew and became wealthy because of both Hollywood and money. And then it's like, well, no, now they're the Illuminati and they control everything and they're the Rothschilds and the Zionist agenda, right? And it's just like, oh
Yeah.
man, if we just knew a little bit of the history of how these things formulated, isn't this mass conspiracy from one group of people to want to control another group of people?
And this just goes for the same thing. If you meet, this is a good message, a little story I'll tell you about my father. My father, when I was incarcerated twice, and I was like a few times, but I've been arrested. But I did some time, and like after I got out, my father was really like, he was really into, sort of just helping people that were in jail. And he had a job. He's an engineer, and he had like a little work factory in like Elizabeth, New Jersey, Hillside, New Jersey. It's a pretty hood area. And this guy gives him, a resume, and he got, the resume is missing like 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, so like what happened here? And I was like, I wasn't able to work during those years. So obviously the guy did like 20 years in prison. So obviously the guy might have killed somebody or something. So my father hires him. He wants to hire this black guy. And the guy ends up like threatening my father and wants to kill him. And I'm not going to judge the entire black community based on one guy that came out of jail trying to kill my father. So just like that, we wouldn't want to do that to Armenians, people from Azerbaijan. And I know there's hella beef between Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey in that area.
Yep.
And of course, like if you want to go down the list of like bad Jewish people that have Jewish last names, if you want to find conspiracy theories, they're all on the internet. Go find them. You could hop off this and you can go watch them right after this. And you can look up Weinstein and Jerry, all these guys that are like were people and they're not really the best people. They're not the great people at all. And it has nothing to do with them being like Torah observant Jews or anything. They're just bad people. Mm-hmm. And that's it. But if you want to judge an entire group of millions and millions and millions of people based on that, I mean, there's plenty. The Holocaust survivor that spoke on our show lives below the poverty line. Mm-hmm. And we had a three and a half hour program for Solvay, and he stayed from the beginning to the end. And I asked him why he stayed at the beginning to the end. I'm like, you're under the poverty line, or you're 80 years old. And he goes, because it's called respect. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't agree with everyone that was speaking about Black Lives Matter. He just wasn't agreeing. He's a Holocaust survivor. He wants to fight bigotry. And he even told me, he goes, I have problems with this and that. But he stayed the entire time because he has respect with other people. And even he could disagree. And I think as a society, we've totally get into cancel culture. And we're just like, you do one bad thing to me, you're done. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't operate like that. I think like a really amazing part of life is like making up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you this: as a Jewish person, do you feel like the statements he made? Because the thing is, it's hard because the statements he made are indicative of a broader ideology, right? That's why the statements are problematic, right? The statements that he made is they're part of a broader ideology, and so the issue becomes. He's not talking about individuals who have done wrong. He's talking about broad groups of people, generalizations against Jewish people and against white people. And I think that's where it becomes, because if it was inverted and these things were said, and he said them rather flippantly, I feel like, right? He said them rather flippantly. If these things were inverted and they were said, it would be like, yo, no, you can't say this about Mexicans. You can't say this, right? You can't say this about blacks. You can't say this about other ethnicities. But, and that's what got him in hot water is the generalizations. It's not the, hey, I feel like there are black Hebrews. Cool, yeah, black Hebrews. I got no problem with black Hebrews, right? As neither do you, as a man that's, Jewish. You got no problem with that. But when you start getting into broad generalities, I think that's where it becomes problematic. And just the fact that like these things can incite violence against Jewish people, and they have, like some of the far gone black Hebrew Israelites have incited violence, like you mentioned at the end of 2019, where there was these hate crimes that were committed. And so I think it's very important to know that we are talking about this stuff because it is part of a broader ideology that is held by a lot of different sects, but also because they're just generalizations, right? They're broad generalizations that you're lumping multiple people in. That it's not a fair assessment.
Well, yeah, like and I said, it's like where people don't grasp the fact that a white person isn't Jewish. I could tell who's Jewish when I walk in a room. Another white person wouldn't be able to, but
Mm,
I can tell. Oh, what's your last name? Oh, really? Like, oh, maybe facial structure, the nose. It's like we're an ethno religion, right? Which is like an ethnicity and a religion,
right,
so it's a little bit different, right? Um, and white people, there's billions of white people, and there's only 16 million Jews. So,
right.
so it's really all of a sudden. But it seems that we get a lopsided amount of attention in
Yep.
comparison to the billions of others. So that's why it continues to goes back and like, at least in the hip hop community, it's so crazy because I know so many people that I just could have left. Yo, I think you guys are tripping.
Mhm.
And as somebody that deals with that in the hip hop world, because people assume that because you're Jewish that you're gonna get all these connections, um, right? That you're gonna get and this is really a thing is that you're gonna be on. But ironically, in my form of work, people would rather stay away from that because they don't want to deal with anything political or I don't want to get involved because it's way easy to not be involved.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's sort of the thing with people being like, for Jews, we've been hated since the beginning of time.
Mhm.
So because someone else, Nick Cannon is this week, Deshaun Jackson was last week, Ice Cube did an image the other week, Diddy's now. Like someone will come next week too and take Nick Cannon's place, or somebody else. People are losing it in quarantine,
Yep.
and they want to talk. And and a lot of us. Some people post about it, some people don't, and then some people post about it. Some people dedicate their whole life to fighting bigotry and anti-Semitism and racism. Others don't, and then eventually, for us, it's a cycle. It always
Yep.
happens, here and there, here and
Yep.
there, here
Yep.
and there. So
Let me ask you this: based on the statements he put out, I think he put out another statement today apologizing. Do
mhm.
you accept his apology?
I think I'm always gonna accept somebody's apology, right? Who am I to be like, no, Nick, I don't accept your apology. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like when you get, and that's just a Jewish way of thinking. It's like Tikkun Olam, heal the world. Like, yeah, dude, like it's okay. Like we're on the same team. Just because you offended me doesn't mean I'm still not on your team. You
Mhm.
see what I'm
That's good.
saying?
That's good.
Like, like it's just true. Like I march with Black Lives Matter because that's the right thing to do.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And we're fighting bigotry and racism together.
Yep.
And if you're okay with me checking you on some things, ask me. And I'm telling you, I did not know when I first started rapping as Kosha Dills.
Mhm.
When I was in jail, I saw a bunch of other people getting out of the pod because they get to see a pastor or a priest or something. And I was like, this is bullshit. I want to see a rabbi or else it's discrimination. So I decided to do that. And I realized that I had changed my name from Kosher Dill to KD Flow because people had made fun of me. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to really double down and make this dope name and go this was in the era of nonfiction Ill Bill. It was kind of like gangster Jewish rap, Bugsy Siegel type mentality was what I wanted. And that's what it was. Like Kosher Dills was like a street hustler. It was sexual reference, a food reference. It was, you know what I'm saying? It was some real East Coast stuff. And then as I started getting out into the internet, all these Jewish people started reaching out to me, and I started learning so much because I didn't come from a Jewish background. I came from Israeli parents, which are very different than American Jews. So I
Mm.
had just like having a complete different upbringing than just a normal white person in America. You had even because you look one way, you had a really different experience. And for me, it was the same way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can you?
as
We'll do a few Q&A if you guys are watching live. Feel free to ask. For you guys, um, for you guys watching, let me know if you guys Q&A. So can you break that down because I think that may be confusing for some people. There is, I guess, American Jews, there's Israelis, and there's Hebrews. And I know Judaism is a faith, but it's also an ethnicity. Um,
yeah,
some of this stuff can be confusing for people. So can you break some
right.
of that down?
So you might hear people say, "Well, I'm not that Jewish," meaning they don't really celebrate the holidays. And how people are speaking in terms of an ethno-religion, of being religious. I'm not a religious Christian. I mean, I was born Christian, but I'm not really. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Some people will be like, "Well, being Jewish is an ethnicity in a sense is that you're born Jewish by your mother's blood. So Jews are from Judea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you talk about American Jews, let's say there's Jewish summer camp, there's all the Jewish youth groups, very similar to, other youth groups, other religions, When my parents came from Israel, my mom was born in Israel, my father came from Transylvania, and they moved to America. I was the first, so I'm an Israeli American. My brothers, everyone was born in Israel except me. A lot of people, we were just always living around non-Jews. All my friends, no one was Jewish, actually. But we were Israelis. So Israelis are speaking Hebrew in the household, conversational Hebrew, right? Where many American Jews don't speak Hebrew, but they very much read, from scriptures, etc., like, Old Testament, etc., for, practicing for your bar mitzvah. So I very much grew up with the identity of Israel, of like Jews are from Judea, like, this is where we're from, this is where my family's from, my entire family's there, so this is what I rep, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people will be like, well, Judaism is a religion, it's not a kind of people, which is essentially wrong because, like I said, although some people look white, there's Ashkenazi Jews, there's Sephardic Jews, there's Mizrahi Jews, so there's Jews from all different areas. What we all have in common is that we were all kicked out of places for being Jewish. So that's kind of like what people need to know, is that all the Jews that are in Israel, there's 16 million, there's 8 million in Israel, and many of them were, kicked out from Iraq, Iran. In LA, there's a lot of Persian Jews. They were all, with the Ayatollah and the Shah. They all came here in the early 80s, late 70s. But that's the one thing that we do all have in common, is that all the Jews that ended up in America, all the Jews that are still in Europe and France and Germany, all these Jews were essentially, kicked out wherever they were at some point for being Jewish, for not being white.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So, okay, we'll get into a few questions. Okay, so this is, if you're Jewish, are you Hebrew? This is, again, I think, getting in some of the minutia of this. If you're Jewish, are you Hebrew?
I don't really know the answers. I speak Hebrew, but it's because I just know the language, and it's the language in Israel, and that's like the first language. It's like English is first language in America. I don't know if you're Jewish, according to the 16 million Jews that are Jews in America and all around the world, in Canada and everywhere, is that they're part of the Jewish community. Like their father's Jewish, mother's Jewish, they're part of the Jewish world. They identify as a Jew. I think when you're speaking about Hebrew, I'm not sure if he's speaking about like the Hebrew Israelites, or or calling a Jewish person, oh, like you're Hebrew. No one that's Jewish that I know will be like, oh, what's up? It wouldn't be like, oh, you're a Hebrew. It's kind of something that's not really used in Jewish terminology.
So this goes without saying. So was Nick wrong for saying the Jews were black?
No, but what he's referring to is a different ideology, because someone asked me today, is Moses black? Could have really well been black. Might not have been black like Ruslan, or like black like Mers. You know what I'm saying? Might have been a different shade of like Ethiopian. So that comes from an ideology of like sort of stripping Jews of any identity, and that it's impossible for you to be the Semitic people. We can't be anti-Semitic because we're the Semitic people and you're not. You're fake. So that's what that's rooted in, actually.
It's the ideology behind it.
Yeah, but could what was the question? Whether the first Jews are black, or Moses was black, or I'm not sure what the question was.
So the question was Nick wrong for saying the Jews were black? That's the question.
Technically, if you break that down, no, because there are black Jews. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
I got tons of black Jews friends.
Again, and that's the issue. The issue is not saying that you can't be black and Jewish. The issue is saying that Kosher Dills is not Jewish, right? And that is the issue. I could speak recklessly about Jewish people, right? The Jews of the day, call them fake Jews, say Kosher Dills is not black, say Kosher Dills is not Jewish, and see, it's a slippery slope, because then you get into the Holocaust wasn't really that bad, it was exaggerated, and that wasn't really against the Jews. That's the slippery slope, and it's under a broader ideology that isn't just, can black people be Jewish? Yes, we've said that. We've literally have repeated that. I've said that on every video I've made about this topic. How many times do we got to go back around this and say, there's a movie that just came out with Adam Sandler talking about Jews in Ethiopia? Like, what? Like, what are we talking about? Like, yes, black people can be Jewish, for crying out loud. Goodness gracious. Okay, so let's see if there's any other.
Yeah, I love it. I gotta turn you on to some really great Ethiopian Jewish rappers in Israel that are like mind blowing, really dope.
Yeah, and oddly enough, Ethiopia. Yeah, Ethiopia is also the first country to identify Christianity as as their official religion. It was Ethiopia, right? So Christianity has deeper roots in Ethiopia and Africa than in Roman Catholicism or any other. So that's another thing, is like people are like, Christianity is a white man's religion. Well, no, because the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts and literally they established Christianity in the year 300, right? And then Armenia, oddly enough, Armenia was the second nation to recognize it as the official religion. Roman Catholicism and Constantine happened to like 100 years after that. So anyway, that's either here or there.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead. No, you can chime in. I'm sorry.
My roommate in Israel, like my boy Arya, which he is a specialist in like Jewish history of Azerbaijan, and he like was living in Azerbaijan. And what's the capital of Azerbaijan?
Baku.
Baku. Yeah, he was living in Baku, and he was just like, he was giving like, special tours of the Jewish history of Azerbaijan. And I just thought that was epic, because that's where you're from, Azerbaijan.
Yeah, from Baku. Well, I was so I'm Armenian, but yes, we lived in Azerbaijan, yes. Baku.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyways,
yeah, let's keep going. From my understanding, Jews are of the tribe of Judah. Yes, we went over that. Semite is someone who comes from them. We already covered that. Israelis are the tribe of Jewish. Hebrew is the language. Yep. And that's another thing. Like, yo, if you're a black Jew or a black Hebrew, whatever, like, your point was like, you've met Nick Cannon, you've been around him a bunch of times. You said you don't ever recall him speaking Hebrew.
Yeah, that was a little flex, because it's just like, this is the thing. And I have a friend, he's a black Orthodox Jewish rabbi. The dude is a genius. If you want to look him up on Twitter, I suggest his name is Manishtana, Manishtana. And he goes like, if you're going to say those things, well, you're not the real. What's the purpose of you saying that? Are you going to all of a sudden practice this thing and say like, hey, we're the ones? Because there are groups of people that are doing that in Israel, and they're recognized by the state of Israel, and they're in Dimona.
So when Nick, someone just asked this. They said when Nick was speaking on, he is referring to black people here now in America. And I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday. There's a theory that based on Jewish people needing to be enslaved for 400 years, there's multiple Bible verses about this, right? And the theory goes, well, if you look at it, they were only in Egypt for 430 years. So that prophecy is applying to black people in America. But then if you look at black people in America, they were enslaved from 1619 to 1865. That's not 400 years. But the theory goes that there were some black Jews in Portugal, and that those were some of the descendants, became the descendants of slaves. I don't know. You know what I mean? Are all black people in America Hebrew? I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to prove that.
Technically, no. Well, because that's actually mistranslated. I think they talk about Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. Mm-hmm. I had a big discussion with this, but my friend the other day, and they're talking about these prophecies that's they're speaking. This is a different slavery, but I mean, Egypt is where slavery was happening, and who's to say when this slavery was happening by a specific time? I think that is the general understanding of like where is slavery happening to pinpoint it, but I don't think ultimately they use that as a way to just say you're not the real Jews, we're the real Jews, and we've been not doing anything Jewish since then. And I just think it's I don't know, but I think it's really divisive. I wish I knew more on that topic completely.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm gonna have the homie Zadok come on tomorrow, who identifies as a black Hebrew aligns with some of this ideology. But the difference with Zadok is he would never call anybody a fake Jew. That's the slippery slope, right? Like Zadok, I got a couple other buddies from some of these different camps. They would never say, "Oh, Kosha, you're a fake Jew." But that is the ideology that Nick Cannon is coming from, is that we're the real Jews, you're the fake Jews. There's nothing wrong with saying, is it possible that black people in America are the descendants of the lost tribe of Israel? Yes, it's possible. No one is denying that.
That one specific thing was basically the beef is that, like, are they speaking of the Egyptian slavery, or are they speaking of the transatlantic, the slave trade? Right. And I'm like, I think honestly that they're not speaking about the transatlantic slave trade. I think they're speaking about Egypt. But I'm also not somebody that's reading scriptures all the time. But I have, a community of people that do. And what the guy Manish Dana was saying is, ultimately, if you are going to use these arguments, are you using them to develop hate towards somebody else? Or are you doing it because you want to start practicing and you're like, I feel like this is my calling and this is what I want to do?
Yeah, that's good. Because I think anything that's driving you into division and hate, and you whether it's against white people or against Jewish people, I think is not of God. I'm just going to call it what it is. So if you discovering your Hebrew identity is pushing you forward to the view of the Imago Dei, all people are created in the image of God, the view that you are to love others, the view that, like if it's driving you deeper in that, man, praise God for that. But if it's driving you into divisive, elitist, superiority complex that no, we're true Israel and they're fake Jews and white people are savages and less than, and right, and I can't be anti-Semitic because I'm Semitic, like that is where it gets super divisive and is counterproductive for what we're seeing of this great awakening happening in America, where we're all coming together, Christians, Jewish, black, white, LGBTQ, whoever, coming together and saying, hey, there's an issue. There's an obvious issue here. Now, we could talk about why there's an issue, and we could talk about where the issue comes from, but there's an issue here with injustice, with people being treated different, with the sin of partiality. We need to do something about that. Let's do something about that, right? That is beautiful. We should stand up for justice, period. And so I think to your point, bro, if it's driving you to a divisive, hateful, dismissive, canceling culture, then that is not of God. Plain and simple.
Well, you see a lot of people in the comment section be like, yeah, but he's spitting straight facts. But if we went into facts, like, yes, there's bad Jewish people. Yes, there were a couple Jewish slave owners, but there was barely any Jewish slave owners. There was barely any Jews in America during that time. White people owned slaves, Arab people owned slaves, black people owned slaves. And like, those are facts. If I'm going to spit facts, right. The other facts are, yes, there is one Jewish person. There are Jewish people in Hollywood. Yes, these are like the things that are used to build divisive. The same thing goes for what's the worst thing you could say to a black person during this whole thing. Well, why don't you guys police black on black crime? That's right. The same concept as conspiracy theories toward Jews. They control the world. They do this, but like, well, you guys black, you're taking someone's thing and then it's flipping it against them. You're taking the facts and you're being, well, you do this and you do that. When the fact is, that's not true, because I'm not here to judge the next person walking in because of some statistic that has happened. But you do have to listen to people when they say, hey, bro, I'm low-key really feeling like this. Like, I'm really feeling like you could say anything you want about Jewish people and catch a pass. Because it's like my own experience. Just like a black person say, like, yo, every time I'm driving and pulled over by police, like, they seem to pay extra attention to me. And ultimately, what I felt like happened with the Nick thing was something driven by a bigger force and Farrakhan, and who's really good at his marketing and etc. And I was at the Nipsey Hussle funeral, right, at Staples Center, just like any other person. Were you there? I don't know if you were there, but
I was not there.
Everyone was there, and I thought, listen, I think Farrakhan does a lot of great things for the black community, the underserved black community, and helps a lot of people. And there's that one thing that we all like this one person that we look up to, and then they start saying something else where we're like, could you shut that off and still listen and separate it? Not everyone can. And I thought, wow, this guy's like passing out 30,000 newspapers outside the funeral. It's kind of weird to me. So, I also doubt where, the people get the source of information. And unfortunately, as a Jewish person, it's come up so many times in my entire life, and especially my rap career. For me, experiencing some people being like, "You're not a real Jewish person," just in rap, it's dealing with rap stuff,
Yeah.
And you think about so I've seen this before, while other people are only seeing in 2020. This happened to me in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. There are people trying to devalidate somebody. So for me, it's kind of like old news, and then sometimes people ask you about it, and unfortunately, like. Now we all have the opportunity. We're having cool conversations like this. We could ask questions, and you're saying like, "Hey, how can I help you?" And I just want to mention this. I had during my event, I had my friend talk about supporting Black-owned business, and something really familiar for me is just being Jewish. Is that like you get a lot of support within the Jewish community? You get gigs in the Jewish community. I'm sure also in the Christian music community, there's like these musical events. It's a really interesting thing, but especially I've definitely had shows where people be like, bro, I love it. Kosher Dills, you're Jewish. Hell yeah. Like, I fuck with it. You know what I mean? I'm all about it. And you're like, wow, and I want my friends who are Black to have that experience of being like, yo, you're Black. I want to buy your stuff. And that's it, not because of any other reason. I want you to experience support just for being who you are. And I think just as a community that has that experience, I want to be able to facilitate those things. So with Nick apologizing, I'm all about it. But I would love to see him maybe police his comment section, and he has to continuously. It's not just a one post thing,
Yeah.
To get all
That's good. And I was, and I made a video, bro, and I said I don't think he should have been deplatformed, or fired. I think what Viacom and CBS could have done is to have Nick have a conversation with rabbis, Black rabbis, white Jewish rabbis, and have these conversations to so that this could have been a fruitful dialogue and not something that in the same respect that I don't like cancel culture because it doesn't allow anybody to learn. And so, he was widely embraced by Black Twitter in this situation, but canceled by Viacom, CBS, and I don't think that should happen. I think this could have been a very fruitful conversation with guys way smarter than you and me on these topics and way more scholarly, and there could have been an education and a coming together instead of a divisiveness. And so,
And that's the thing with at least of the cancel culture is that it's not the first time it's happened for Jewish people, and then in television, he gets it canceled, so he gets one show canceled, or he gets his one relationship. But financially, he's fine. But think about what he unleashed and how many other people don't care. So I think it's okay for one person to get canceled here and there. Ultimately, it has no effect on me. I just want people to learn more. If there's another opportunity to people to actually engage that are on the fence and really do I thought you had to be Jewish to be successful in music, or some people are really on that, you know what I mean? And once I started traveling around the world with music with the name Kosher Dills in all these rural places where there are no Jews and Omaha, and then there are small amounts, but you start to realize that people don't know. So I hope that Nick, honestly, comes through and really steps it up and becomes an advocate for bringing people together versus the comment section, which is 100. Of course, I'm rolling with it. You know what I'm saying? It's me to get a bunch of Instagram page. And how much it hurts me to see damn, I love Bun B and I love all these are all my favorite rappers, and they're like, of course, bro, but it doesn't really mean that they hate Jewish people too, but it just. I understand hip hop. I understand representing for you. I don't care if you committed a robbery. You're my boy. I'm gonna hold you down. You know what I'm saying? And that just does.
Can you name the rabbi you said marched with Martin Luther King? Because somebody said we'll have Jewish people stood with Black people, and I think the answer is unequivocally yes.
Rabbi Abraham Heschel.
Rabbi Abraham Heschel. I'm gonna Google that real quick. Rabbi Abraham.
Joshua Heschel.
How do you spell Heschel? Oh, here we go.
H-E-S. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. Abraham Joshua Heschel. That is somebody that marched with Martin Luther King. So, you know what I'm saying? And by the way, again, guys, if something is driving your ideology to create a us versus them mentality. That is not from God. That is not from truth. That is not from love, right? That is what I'm speaking against. Like, and I don't care what side it's coming from. And I check a lot of my white friends when we're talking about the issue of Black lives. And I made multiple videos about this. When we're talking about the issue of Black Lives Matter, and somebody says, well, yeah, what about white lives? All lives matter. I checked them on that. When we're talking about statistics and people say, what about black on black crime? I checked them on that. So we're going to have just scales. Unjust scales are an abomination to the Lord. We're going to correct people when they speak out of pocket. And listen, you could cancel me. I don't care. You can't cancel somebody that owns. I don't work for Viacom. I don't work for anybody else. You can't deplatform me. You can't deplatform Kosher Deals because we literally own everything. But we're gonna keep it a buck, and in the same way, you want that energy for when white people speak out of pocket, which I don't think black people should even have to do that. I check white people for that. I do that. I do the correcting. I do the work in the DMs.
That's what we need. Like, just on the side of anyone, like, I love Nick Cannon. I love Diddy. Like, I would totally hang out with him immediately, and I'd be like, listen, but like low key, I mean, you need to like check your man, because I can't do it because he's going to say, oh, yeah, that's racist. Like, you can't do that to me. You need to have your own people, you know, and it's like, listen, every community has their racists. Every community has their bigots, but that's not rooted in their people. It's rooted in their upbringing of why they're having, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, you know, we have to be able to check somebody, and it's like, it's okay, dude. Like, you've never been checked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, being checked is okay too. And you're like, oh, damn. Like, I was checked, you know, at certain times in my life, and I'm like, damn, like, he's right. And that was really embarrassing. And that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you move forward. You know, unfortunately, though, at that level of Nick, when you have, there was a chart somebody recently made, you know, Nick Cannon, P. Diddy, and Deshaun Jackson. I mean, there's only 16 million Jews in the world. These guys have more Instagram followers than the amount of Jews. So, you know, the amount of hate that kind of stems out in those comment sections is really hurtful. You know what I mean? So we have to continuously to fight white supremacy, remind each other, like, bro, I know this looks like this, but we're on your side too. Trust me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And again, tomorrow I'm going to have Zadok, who is identifies as a black Hebrew. He's going to give the history of this movement, where it came from. We're gonna unpack all of that. So you guys, you know, JB, I see you, bro. And JB, you like, I know JB personally. You know what I mean? I think you know JB as well. JB out of Oklahoma, amazing artist, super dope.
JB did the Solvay event, and JB is somebody that, you know, that I think is like a huge, important black leader in Oklahoma. That, like, it's an untouched area of, like, you know, and I learn a lot about black history through him, especially in the Midwest, just like being like, oh, this year was my first Juneteenth that I was attending a festival. So, I mean, shout outs to JB, but, you know, I think a lot of times when you work with people in music, like I said, like Akil was there and JB, like, we respect each other because we know each other from our music, and we're working in this grind, and we're working in a business that's impossible to even make money and anything, and we're still doing this content, you know, and hip hop mentality, when it comes to hatred, and I want to make this point, is that I definitely have, like, I rep New Jersey, I rep Israel, like, I'm down, like, let's roll, like, I rep you forever. But when it gets mixed into sort of, you know, what Nick was doing, like, I stand with Nick no matter what. I don't care. Nick shot 3 people. I'm with Nick, wilding out for life. As much as I do believe in that mentality, it just needs to be checked at the door on this one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the same thing. That is the same thing we would criticize the MAGA cult mentality for. When it's like, this president could do no wrong ever and he's always perfect. I check people on that, right? So it's not so much about trying to tell anybody what to think or what to feel. It's just saying, hey, listen, we're gonna have just scales, and we're going to address stuff historically. And when somebody says these people are fake Jews, I'm going to do what I'm going to say. If somebody's going to use broad generalities and say all white people are savages, I'm going to check that, right? And if that reveals my white fragility, which is like, that's not even what the concept is talking about. And you want to dismiss me and cancel me for that, then so be it. But don't ever sit here and say that I haven't had these same conversations with my black brothers and sisters when we've talked about the injustices in the black community. We're gonna have that same energy. We're gonna have that same energy when something is said against a Jewish person, when something is said that is just inaccurate. We're gonna have that same energy. Now, tomorrow, again, turn your notifications on, hit the like and subscribe button. Tomorrow, I'll have Zadok on, and maybe Kosher will call in. I don't know. We'll see. You know what I'm saying? But to make these broad, sweeping generalizations that are just shallow and ignorant, like that's just all they are. Because here you have two people. Kosher, you have family that experienced the travesties of the Holocaust, correct?
My whole family has died in the Holocaust. You know what I'm saying? My whole family.
I have family that have experienced, and my great grandparents and people connected to that, the Armenian genocide. This is within the last 100 years, right? This is within the last 100 years that we've spoken these things. So let's listen to, and yet we would sit here and say, yeah, bro, despite the way our names look on paper and despite our genealogy, we are viewed as white by society, even though my lineage had nothing to do with colonizing black people or slavery. I would acknowledge that. But if you literally look at, like, I don't come from the Caucasus Mountains, right? And that's why I'm saying this broad generalities, this us versus them, is not helpful. And if you're in a loop and you don't see any nuance and you don't want to have any objective conversation, this channel is not for you. You say something crazy, I'll probably block you. I'm just going to keep it a buck. But if you're saying, hey, I want to listen, I want to learn, just like I want to listen and I want to learn from people from the black culture, just like I sat here and was educated, much like you, Kosher Dills, on Juneteenth, and was like, wow, why is this not an official holiday? Why is this not our actual Independence Day, right? Like, we have to be willing to sit and listen. Now, a great point that some people have brought up is that Holocaust survivors got reparations. Right? And you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, Kosher. You know better than I do. Holocaust survivors got reparations. Black people didn't get reparations. I've went on record repeatedly saying I think black people should get reparations. Yeah. I have no problem. Like, why are we pinning different injustices against each other on which one is greater? Like,
no, and this is the thing, and this is there's a huge difficulty. One, they think that, you know, my one friend who's a black Orthodox gay Jew. Which is, it's a hard thing to. His name's Wylove. He was a really dope rapper. He rapped in Aramaic, and he's a genius when it comes to Torah and just being a scholar. He told me, like, if they were to really truly do reparations for the black community in America, like, the entire country would be bankrupt. There wouldn't be money. Also, he told me it was difficult because there's no living survivors of slavery. So there's living people. The Holocaust survivors are still alive. Tons of them, hundreds of thousands, millions, if I'm not mistaken. They're dying at an alarming rate because, you know, it's that time of life where you start dying after 80. Could Jewish people help black people get reparations and formulate that? I think, of course, because they're working hand in hand. People in law, people are, like, you know, trying to make that happen. They're trying to wonder who would be a direct descendant of slavery. Is it you? Is it him? Is it there? I know every single, like, I have the privilege of knowing who died in my family. Not everybody does. And I think that's the really difficult part. And I really hope, though, that they find a solution to it. So we're on, like I said, we're still on the same team. I want everyone.
And Asheville, so here you have a white Jewish person who just acknowledged that reparations should be a thing for black people, regardless on how complex that can become. Asheville, North Carolina, just approved reparations for the black community. I'm an Armenian white dude that just said I'm for reparations. So, I mean, again, like, I don't know what else needs to be said to say, hey, we are with you in the fight against injustice, right? And anything beside, if you can't hear that, then it's really just like you've bought into we're
against you, you're against us.
Yeah, you bought into the Farrakhan. You've bought into that mentality. And even in this interview, Kosher Dill said was way more gracious to Farrakhan than I would be. And even he said in this interview, he's done a lot of great things for the black community. Like, he's acknowledged that. So it's like, come on. You know what I'm saying? Come on. If you don't want to have nuanced conversation, you don't want to hear diverse perspectives, I'm having a Black Hebrew come on this channel. I have people all the time come on this channel that I disagree with, whether they're conservatives and they're on that end of the spectrum or whether they're liberals, whatever. We have these conversations, and here's the deal. It's just more nuanced than a, black or white answer.
It's just think like, listen, when you get off this and you want to look, I just want to tell people, feel free to hit me up with any other questions, but also like, if you're interested in learning more and actually like doing stuff together, you could do that with one click. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of like, I can't believe, you could find that just as easily too with one click, but it's really up to the person. And I truly believe in like every Black person that I've worked with has graciously helped my career. You know what I'm saying? On so many times, like just all my best friends, Flex Matthews, Murs, Poison Pen, like all these rappers just always just showing up for me when people weren't, saying. So for me, it's normal, to be part of Black Lives Matter. For other Jewish people, they grew up in a very isolated thing. I grew up in non-Jewish, youth. I was just the Israeli American kid that really didn't grasp everything. Mm-hmm. But anyways, man.
Yeah, man.
It's been great to talk about this on the show.
Good conversation, man. Again, we could talk about this stuff for hours. I think at the end of the day, man, hear people's heart, and I do not like the title of ally. Like, I just think it's like a white people wanting to be acknowledged for doing the right thing, right? So like, but hear people's heart and hear who's actually standing with you and who's out here at these marches and who's creating conversations and creating multiple contents and videos to educate my own white people so they aren't problematic, right? And you'd be surprised how many of these conversations I have offline. So just recognize like who is standing with you and who's actually against, because when you start calling people who are with you your enemy because of superficial broad generalizations, it's just counterproductive, and it helps us get nowhere as a people. You know what I mean? And I'll close with this. I don't know if you would I'm going to quote something from the New Testament. I'm not trying to trick you into believing in Jesus, bro, but give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. It's one of my favorite verses, Galatians 3:28. This is the Apostle Paul writing. He says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus," right? So the New Testament view is that we're all one. You know what I mean? We are one people. And it doesn't mean that different people don't have different struggles and there isn't different ethnicities, but that we're all created in the Imago Dei. We're all created in the image of God. We're all created with like infinite value. And I think if we're honest, we have way more in common than we don't. And I think we need to figure out ways to come together, man. So Kosher Deals, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being here, bro. You're always free to come on. You're always free to call in if you want to, talk to the brother Zadok tomorrow. Yeah, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Cool, man. Peace.
Peace, bro. Yo, thank you guys so much for watching this. Turn on notifications. We're gonna have Zadok on tomorrow. He is a Black Hebrew talking about some of this stuff, and I think you guys will find it valuable. You know what I'm saying? Yo, just so you guys know, like, I don't, whatever, like, I don't tolerate the nonsense in my comment section. Just keeping it a buck. You say something crazy, I'm not doing this for more subscribers. You know what I'm saying? I could care less. Like, I'm fine. I make my money comfortably. I'm not here off clout chasing. So if you talk reckless, don't be upset if you're banned from my channel. Just keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to have meaningful dialogue, always feel free to DM me on Instagram. We can have conversation. I'm sure Kosher Deals is more than willing to talk to you, brothers.
Definitely. I would love to hear from some of you guys, and I appreciate having me on the show, man. I wish my background was as cool as yours. So.
It's all good, bro. Thank you so much, man. All right, y'all. Peace.